Auric Consulting presents the Aurical podcast with Anton Marshall. Hello and welcome to the Aurical. My name is Anton Marshall. Today on the line via Skype, we have Mr. Ian Fraser, better known to South Africa as Ian F. Hi Ian, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, Anton. Thank you. And I bet that this is the first interview you've done for these podcasts where your interviewee was driving in his car.
Yes, probably. Just on that account, let me just say, if sound varies wildly while we're doing this, it is because Ian is in his car. A busy man up in Gauteng has no time to be sitting around in studios doing interviews, unless, of course, it's his job, which it is yours, Ian. How did you get into radio business?
Quite by the passion of it, really. I was working at the then BMG Records, which you'll know better now as Sony Records, as they were swallowed up and the music industry went through a bit of a metamorphosis kind of phase. I used to sample records to the radio stations back in the mid 90s, and I walked in onto Alex J at the time, working at 5FM, and I was there to drop some CDs off with him, and I realized that I really didn't want to be in the record industry. I wanted to be in the radio business, because here was a guy who was sitting in a studio talking rubbish, playing tunes, and having a great amount of fun doing it, and from what I had observed, getting paid quite handsomely to do it. So that was the gig for me. And after numerous demos and a bit of tenacity and of somewhat cheekiness, I started my job at 5FM doing ridiculous 1s to 4s in the morning. And 20 years later, more than 20 now, I'm still kind of in the business and doing what I do, and I love it. It's an absolute passion.
You learn a lot about people and a lot about yourself when you're sitting with a microphone in front of you. What were some of the things that you think you really learned about yourself in going through the process of becoming sort of a professional at this type of gig?
It's a great question, Anton, because, being a broadcaster is essentially a very narcissistic job. It's all about you and looking on you, because people are listening essentially to your voice. And I think it's a process of learning to overcome that boundary of sitting in a box in a room, essentially talking to yourself, and having a conversation with somebody that essentially you can't hear answering you. You learn a lot about yourself as a human being, and you learn to be able to communicate in a rather bizarre way. There's that old saying that says it's the first sign of going mad when you talk to yourself. Well, if that's the case, I should be locked up in a mental asylum in a white straitjacket, because I've been talking to myself for 20 years, and the only feedback you really get is from your program director or from those people who have something good or mainly negative to say. It's very far and few compliments that you get. You rather get the negative comments about, we don't like your show, or you play rubbish music or whatever. So it's a tough gig, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it.
You recently made the decision to move from conventional radio onto the online environment. What's that transition been like, and what were some of the differences you felt that brought about for you?
I am online, and I'm also on FM as well. But yes, let's talk about the online space for a second. I'm going to précis the entire thing and say to you, I don't think South Africa or the world, for that matter, is truly ready for online radio. Everyone talks about online being completely different to FM, but in actual fact, it's just an alternative delivery method. FM is accessible in our cars, which is where I find myself listening to radio the most. Whereas online is not. It's a bit more of a mission. Plus, data is so expensive in our country, and it's a bit misunderstood. So the online radio environment is battling. They're battling to make money. They're battling to really get off the ground. I think Gareth Cliff's probably done a really good job in terms of getting Cliff Central off the ground. But even he has that barrier of online. Balls Radio, which I joined and have been doing stuff with, same situation, difficult to capture an audience and to keep people listening. So I think a way to go, but it's a delivery method that I believe in very strongly. I think in the next 10 or so years, we'll have forgotten about FM altogether and be listening to selected kind of pieces of audio online without even thinking twice about it.
Of course, that's not the only thing you do either. That is, being a broadcaster, you also do work related to that. I understand you do voiceover work and such like.
Yeah, so one of the spin-offs of being on radio was, of course, that people heard my voice, and apparently I've been given a voice that I can use to sell people stuff. So I get people paying me to tell them what their product sounds like, and I read scripts. I've also narrated several TV shows. I do a lot of stuff. New venture that I'm into is digital consulting. I'm helping out a lot of clients find their way in the digital space and navigate what can sometimes be a bit of a precarious environment to get people to their websites and to sell stuff on their websites. I also write music. I run a little studio at home and have written music for some films and produced some songs with people. So got a bit of a finger in every pie in that respect, yeah.
Now, on that front, we talk a lot about business and people's business and how they manage business. Your type of work, at least what you've chosen for yourself, it's largely self-driven in the sense of you get to choose the kinds of things you get involved in. How do you manage your career in the sense of determining for yourself what is good for you to do at any given time?
It's quite ironic that you asked that question. I'm going through a process over the past few months, really looking carefully at what I do and what I choose to do. The one thing that I can say that is driving my choice in what I do is, I guess you could call it passion, and I'd like to refer to it as my values. I follow what I love doing, and I find myself constantly migrating back to my music or back to my computer to do stuff. And I guess I have the ability to turn my hobbies and the things that I love into my job. And I'm very blessed to be able to do that. Not that it always pays the bills, I have to say. Sometimes it's the more difficult route. But there's not a day that goes by where I don't love what I do. And that's a properly cool place to be. And I intend to keep it that way as long as I can, if not forever.
The role of the broadcaster has evolved quite strongly over the last 20, 25 years, perhaps even since you've been involved in it. Where do you think it's going? For commercial broadcasters, we know, for example, that programs are pretty tight in respect of what needs to be said or whatever. But as we move to the digital format, as we move to perhaps back to a space where broadcasters have a little bit of autonomy, what's the thing that we need to be saying, perhaps even especially here in South Africa?
Can I just say, let's just quickly touch on the evolution of broadcasting. I think in the 90s, broadcasters were given carte blanche to say and do what they wanted to do and play what they wanted to do, which led to very kind of fragmented radio listening. And in the 2000s, broadcasters and owners of broadcasting platforms and stations tightened that up, got consultants in, and essentially took away the power of the radio DJ and the presenter to be a this is kind of thing. And I've found radio now, I find commercial radio to be fucking boring, and you can quote me. It's listless and it's lifeless. And if I have to hear another sweeper from another station that says, whatever the town is, you can insert it there, that town's #1 hit station, I'm going to puke. So from that, having said that, I think internet radio is fantastic. You can certainly say what you want. You're probably liable to get sued if you go too far. But that has brought back the personality again. And now I think the challenge lies not in the platform anymore, so much as the training and the nurturing of talent to be able to use that voice. Again, I'm going to defer to Gareth Cliff and say that I think he's doing a good job in expressing his own opinions online. He's a pioneer in that. I don't mean to be giving him so much airtime in this interview, but it's true. He's a good example of somebody who's taken that model and used it for a platform to be able to express what is going on out there. And I hope that broadcasters in the next generation can become outspoken and become people who really have opinions and are doing interesting stuff, as opposed to just becoming record jockeys who pay the bills and make shareholders rich.
Fantastic. Okay, finally, ENF's immediate future. What's the kind of project that you'd really like to get involved with? And let's go pie in the sky here. What's the kind of thing you want to do in the next 2 to 3 years?
I would like to, although there's a very small uptake of apps in this country and in Africa, I'm very keen to get involved in the app space. Certainly when it comes to the music industry, I believe there's a lot of talent that is unexplored in our country, music-wise, presenter-wise, and I think no TV talent show is going to unearth that. I think people need to be able to express that and get into a creative space. And unfortunately, it's not terribly easy. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'd like to be in the app space to be able to create something where people get their ideas across, their music across, their demo across. So that's a very broad stroke of kind of what I'm working on. Whether it comes to lights, we'd have to see. But that's my idea, to unearth talent in our country. I think we need to do that.
If the next time I talk to you, we're going to be talking about an interesting couple of projects that has come to light on our side. Get your opinions on them, maybe. I'll send you some documentation. But thanks so much today for taking some time to talk to us. I know a lot of people are going to be very interested in some of the things you said. Thanks very much for talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity, guys. And listen, good stuff for what you're doing. I'm loving it. I've been on the site many times, and I think it's fantastic. So thank you for bearing with me in the car. I hope the line was good enough as well. Take it easy.
You have been listening to the Aurical podcast, brought to you by Aurical Consulting, www.auricalconsulting.co.za.